My name is Nicole. I was 27 when my parents said we were finally taking a family vacation just for us. I didn't know how badly those words would age. We were at the Port Everglades terminal, under a glass canopy that made the Florida sun bounce too hot off the marble. People wheeled luggage in every direction. Kids in matching cruise shirts sprinted past security. A woman near me wore a sash that said, "Birthday Queen." She looked about 60. Her family was clapping. I stood with a single carry-on. Behind me, Heather had 3 pink suitcases and a boyfriend with sunglasses on inside. Caleb was live streaming already. He hadn't even boarded. My mother was passing out matching wristbands with the ship's logo on them. And my dad was making jokes about which deck had the most champagne. And then there was me. I hadn't taken a trip with my family since college. Back then, I'd slept on a pull-out couch while Heather got the queen bed and Mum said I needed less space. But this time was supposed to be different. "It's time you were part of something," Dad had said on the phone months ago. So I said yes. I bought a new dress. I blocked the week off work. I told myself this was their way of making it right. "Room keys," Mum called out, holding a fan of envelopes. "Come get yours." Heather bounced forward, grabbing hers and Caleb's in one motion. My dad took his with a wink at the camera. Then the pile got smaller. 1, 2, 3. By the time I stepped forward, only one keycard was left. Mum blinked like she hadn't expected me to reach. "Oh, this one's yours," she said, voice high. "It's just they didn't have more doubles on our floor, so yours is a bit lower." "How much lower?" She smiled too fast. "It's fine. It's just for sleeping, right?" Dad clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You'll have all the peace and quiet, away from our chaos." The words hit strangely, like a compliment with a bruise underneath. We moved toward the boarding tunnel. Caleb turned his camera back on. "Cruising with the Clarks," he shouted. I didn't raise my hand when the family group cheered. I just walked, quiet, watching their backs move forward like they belonged to something I had to squint to stay part of. At the check-in counter, they scanned wristbands. Heather's beeped green. Caleb's beeped green. Dad's, Mum's green. Then mine. Red. The woman behind the kiosk frowned. "You're not linked to this group's manifest. Are you a +1? I opened my mouth, but no sound came. My mother leaned in, too fast, too loud. "She's with us, just a system error." The woman forced a smile. "Okay, just give me a second." She typed for what felt like a year. The family stepped aside, just far enough that I could see them laugh, but not hear the words. Caleb waved his phone in the air like a trophy. Mum adjusted her scarf. Heather turned her back, and I stood there. One bag, one wristband, one red light. The woman handed it back. "You're all set now," she said softly. "Your cabin's on deck too. That's crew adjacent." I nodded, but something in me folded quietly. Not broke, just bent. Deck 2 was cold. Not cold like ice, but cold like an afterthought. Like the air had been cleaned for function, not comfort. The hallway was narrow, ceiling low. There were no flowers, no welcome music. Just numbered plaques and soft humming vents that never quite stopped. My room was 214B. There was no A. I scanned the card. The door clicked. Inside, the light took a second to wake. No window, no decor, no brochure on the desk with "Welcome Clark Family," like the others had carried upstairs. Just a twin bed, a silver fan, and a closet that creaked when I touched it. I set my suitcase down, looked around. No fruit basket, no itinerary, not even the branded towel bags Heather had posted on her story this morning. Just silence. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to breathe in rhythm. "You're on the ship," I told myself. "You're here. That counts." Then came the knock. Soft. 2 taps. I opened the door to a young staffer, maybe 19, with clipboard and dark circles under her eyes. "Oh, sorry," she said. "They said this room was guest overflow." I blinked. "What? You're not crew?" "No." She looked at the clipboard again. "Huh. Okay. Sorry. I just have linens for crew quarters." I nodded slowly. She handed me a package wrapped in plastic and disappeared before I could speak again. Crew quarters. I turned back into the room and stared at the blanket in my hands. Something clenched in my chest. Upstairs, I could still hear the ship's welcome horn, a grand, elegant sound like something from an old Hollywood movie, the kind of sound that's meant to make you feel part of something bigger. And I was hearing it underground, like a ghost. I pulled out my phone. Heather's story had just updated. A boomerang of them popping champagne on deck 7. A caption, "Family tradition." No tag, no mention, just them and them and them. I scrolled once more, then slid the phone away. I changed into a sundress anyway. I applied mascara, I walked back upstairs, all the way to deck 7. No one stopped me, but no one greeted me either. The party was already in motion. There were mini crab cakes and stemless glasses of rosé. My mum was talking to a couple from Phoenix. My dad was mid-toast to family unity. Heather was laughing so loud it felt choreographed. No one looked toward the elevator when I stepped out. I stood by the railing, counted to 10, then walked up behind my mother and tapped her arm. She turned, just a second too slow. "Oh, you made it up. Good," she said. "Was I not supposed to?" She blinked. "I just wasn't sure your pass would work." "But it's the same cruise," I said. She smiled, thin. "It's fine. You're here. That's what matters." But the glass in her hand wasn't raised, and I wasn't in the toast. The welcome dinner was held in a banquet room off deck 8, lined with ocean-facing glass and tiny gold lights strung across the ceiling like stars. They had name cards. Each table had a theme: coral, sea breeze, sunset glow. My mum had picked them, apparently. There were even tiny framed photos at each setting, childhood pictures, snapshots from previous vacations, inside jokes turned into placemats. I walked the room once, then again. My face wasn't on a single table. There was no Nicole on any card, not even a misspelling. I circled back to the front entrance where a large glossy board listed the seating assignments in looping script. Clark's, table 3. Heather plus Caleb, table 3. Mum plus Dad, table 3. Uncle Jerry, Aunt Marla, table 5. Cousins, table 6. No Nicole. I stared at the list, double-checked for a maiden name, a misprint, an error, nothing. A cruise photographer passed behind me with a tripod and smiled. "Looking for your spot?" "I think so," I said quietly. He leaned in. "They've got extra seats near the buffet. Not part of the themes, but you'll still eat first." I blinked. He tapped the board. "Don't worry, happens more than you'd think. They just prioritize nuclear units." He walked away before I could answer. I sat at an unthemed table near the drink station. There was no centerpiece, no photo, no candle. Just 3 empty seats, a napkin, and silence. I watched from there as Dad gave his welcome speech. He told a story about Heather winning the family trivia night 2 years ago. He joked about Caleb's TikTok addiction. He even mentioned Marla's gluten-free baking, but not me. He didn't even look in my direction. I lifted a glass of water when they toasted. My arm stayed half raised. I told myself maybe I'd blinked when he said my name. Maybe it had been mumbled. Maybe it had just been soft, but I was done pretending. After dinner, guests moved into the photo hall, a stretch of carpeted corridor near the ballroom, with a backdrop printed in tropical pastels and the words, "Clark Family Memories, 30 years strong." I stood near the end of the wall. There were 20 framed portraits, candid moments from past Thanksgivings, laughing snapshots at weddings, birthday group shots. I was in 2. In both, my face was turned sideways. In one, someone else's hand covered half my arm. Heather came up beside me, swirling a cocktail. "Remember that trip?" she said, pointing to a photo of her in a bright yellow swimsuit, our dad pouring a drink behind her. "I wasn't there," I said. "Oh," she sipped. "Right. You had finals or something." "I hadn't. I just hadn't been invited." Heather moved on. Her heels clicked across the floor like punctuation. I stood still. There was no frame for this feeling, no joke to ease it, no apology offered, only soft music, dim lights, and the slow, suffocating realization: you can't be left out if you were never really let in. I didn't go back to my room that night. Not right away. I walked the upper deck instead, past the closed shops and flickering bar signs, past couples in linen and kids chasing each other through the lounge. The sea was black, endless, but it didn't feel as empty as I did. Around 11:40, I sat near the rear pool. The lights were off, water barely moved, just the hush of waves and the occasional clink of ice in someone's forgotten glass. That's when she appeared. Young, maybe 24, short dark ponytail, crisp uniform, name tag that read Janelle. She had a clipboard and tired eyes. "You're not one of the interns, are you, she asked. "No," I said. She nodded. "Didn't think so. They don't wear heels this late." I smiled faintly. She sat on the bench beside me, kicked off her flats. "You're with the Clark group." "Supposedly," she snorted. "That explains it." I turned. "Explains what?" Janelle looked at me with the kind of clarity that only comes from watching families act like brands for a living. "They've rescheduled group photos twice," she said. "Both times someone said they were waiting on the real family." I blinked. She continued, calm. "They changed your name tag at the welcome dinner to guest. It was printed with your last name before that." My throat tightened. "You were watching?" "I run events," she shrugged. "It's my job to notice who gets excluded." I didn't say anything. Janelle leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Look, I don't know your deal. I'm not trying to make it worse, but I've done 42 of these week-long cruises, and I've seen this type before." "What type?" "The type where someone's presence makes the group uncomfortable because they know it shouldn't." I didn't breathe for a second. Then, "They said this trip was about healing." Janelle tilted her head. "Maybe it is. For them." Silence settled between us, soft and absolute. "You want to know something weird?" she added. I looked over. "I checked the family programming board. You're not on the list. Not for the beach excursion. Not for the farewell dinner. Not even for the karaoke bracket." "I was invited," I said. Janelle didn't argue, just nodded once, like she'd heard that line too many times from too many people trying to convince themselves. Then she stood. "Come to the crew lounge tomorrow," she said, half smiling. "It's small, but no one's trying to erase anyone there." She walked away without waiting for a reply. I stayed by the pool another hour, not crying, not spiraling, just steady. Because for the first time all trip, someone had looked at me without blinking away the truth. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I was being edited. And someone finally noticed. The crew lounge wasn't easy to find. You had to go through a side hallway near the lower galley, then down a short metal stairwell that creaked with every step. There were no signs, no music spilling out, just a plain door slightly ajar, with a laminated paper taped to the front. "Break room. Employees only." But I pushed it open, and for the first time all cruise, no one looked surprised to see me. Janelle waved from across the room. "Told you it's not fancy." It wasn't. The lights flickered. The couch had a rip in the side. The vending machine was half out of order, blinking eights. Eights, but it felt real. There were 5 people sitting in mismatched chairs. One was folding napkins. Another scrolled through a cracked phone screen. A third was sketching something in a spiral notebook. Janelle motioned me over. "Everyone, this is Nicole." A few nods. One, "Hey." That was it. No second glances. No, "Are you part of the Clarks?" questions. No confusion about why I was there. I sat beside her. She handed me a half can of ginger ale. "You said you ran events?" I asked. Janelle nodded. 3 years. Mostly birthday groups, weddings, college reunions. I hesitated. "So, what do you see when you see my family?" She didn't look up right away. Then, "Branding." "What?" "They're performing a unit," she said. "The Golden Family. Polished, themed, filtered. Which means any piece that doesn't match gets airbrushed." I sat with that. "They've done this before, haven't they?" she asked. I nodded. "Not like this, but yes." Janelle took a breath. "Let me guess. Always positioned as a guest, but never outright rejected." "Exactly," she sipped. "That's worse." Someone across the room turned on a Bluetooth speaker. The sound was scratchy but warm. Jazz, maybe. Something old, crackling. "Want to do something dumb?" Janelle asked suddenly. "What kind of dumb?" "Karaoke night. Staff edition. No cameras, no judging. Just lungs and guts." I smiled for the first time in days. "Yeah, why not?" 10 minutes later, I was holding a dented mic, standing under a flickering ceiling panel while the opening chords of a Fleetwood Mac song played through static. And I sang. Not for Heather, not for Mum, not for some imaginary apology I'd never get. I sang for the girl who was erased from dinner toasts and family photos. I sang like I mattered. And when the chorus hit, loud, wrong, glorious, I saw something happen across that tiny room. People looked up, smiled, nodded, and clapped. It wasn't a standing ovation. It wasn't a cruise highlight. But it was real. Afterward, Janelle leaned in. "You've got lungs, Clark," I laughed. "Apparently." We sat for a while after that, not talking about family, not talking about pain, just sharing space where no one had to prove they belonged. And when I finally made it back to my cabin that night, for the first time all trip, I didn't check Heather's story. I didn't refresh the family group chat. I just let silence hold me. Because it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. The sunrise came late on deck 2. Down there, the ocean light doesn't pour in. It leaks through seams. I was up before it anyway, staring at the ceiling, reliving every second from the night before. The singing, the clapping, the silence that for once didn't crush me. And then, the message from Mum. Just one line slipped under my door on cruise stationery. "Family brunch at 9, wear coral." I didn't reply, but I dressed, not in coral, not in pastels, in black. I rode the elevator to deck 9 like a funeral march. The brunch was held in a glass atrium with sea views and imported orchids. A string quartet played near the mimosa bar. There was a table with gift bags and custom-made family menus titled Clark Legacy. I wasn't on the menu. Again. Heather was in coral. So was Caleb. So were both my parents. It looked like a press photo for a campaign I wasn't part of. I stood near the fruit station until Mum spotted me. She walked over, fake smile firm. "You made it." "I got the note." "I wish you'd worn the colour." I looked her straight in the eye. "I wish you'd told me the truth." She blinked. "About what?" "About the room, the seating, the events, the pictures." Her eyes flickered. I lowered my voice, but not my gaze. "Why didn't you just say I wasn't really invited?" She exhaled like I'd made her tired. "Oh, Nicole, don't make this dramatic." "You made it dramatic," I snapped. A few heads turned. "You invited me," I continued, "then erased me from every single thing. My room's below crew level. I'm not on one itinerary, not one toast, not even a chair at the welcome dinner." "We didn't mean to—" "You meant to look perfect. You meant to show off a curated family. And you meant to push me off the edges of every frame." Her jaw tensed. Dad appeared then, hand on her back, eyes darting between us. "What's going on?" "She's upset," Mum said quietly. "Again." I turned to him. "You gave a speech about family unity and skipped my name. It was an accident." "No, it wasn't." He opened his mouth, closed it, looked toward Heather like he needed backup. She didn't turn. I stepped closer. "You said this cruise was about healing. It wasn't. It was about presenting. You wanted the image, not the person." Mum tried to shush me, but I was done being shushed. "Next time," I said, voice clear and final, "just leave me off the list completely. That would hurt less than pretending I belong." I walked out before they could say another word. Past the orchids, past the champagne, past the table marked legacy. And down, 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 until the music couldn't reach me, and the only sound was my breath, still mine, still real. I didn't leave the ship. God knows I wanted to. I walked past the shore excursion line 3 times, thinking maybe I'd just step off at Nassau and book my own hotel. Let them finish the curated cruise without their invisible daughter. But I didn't, because something inside me had snapped. Not shattered, snapped. And once something snaps, you either fall apart or you start building. So I did. It started with a conversation in the laundry alcove. "Is there anything fun not on the official schedule?" I asked Janelle, folding towels beside her. She raised an eyebrow. "Define fun." "Loud, free, not beige," she grinned. "Crew has a DJ who owes me a favour." That night, we posted 3 paper signs in the staff kitchen, the supply hallway, and the back entrance near the pool. Midnight deck jam, no dress code, no titles, no scripts, all welcome. That was it. No branding, no family name, just space. At 12:07 a.m., it was supposed to be maybe 15 of us. A speaker, some snacks, a string of lights looped through a maintenance railing. A night for the misfit tier, the interns, the junior hosts, the forgotten cabin guests. By 12:40, we had 50. People brought their own cups. Someone plugged in a strobe light. The music was half remixes, half throwbacks, all too loud for protocol. But no one cared. We danced barefoot. We laughed without filming it. And I was in the center of it. Not because I fought for a seat, but because I made the space. Janelle bumped my shoulder mid-song. "You started this." I shook my head. "We started this." "No," she said. "You sparked it." Somewhere behind us, 2 of the cruise interns did a synchronized move to a Destiny's Child track. Someone shouted encore, like this was Madison Square Garden. It wasn't, but for us, it was more. I stepped back for a breath, and that's when I saw her, my cousin Beth, in coral, watching from the stairwell. She wasn't supposed to be there. She'd always been quiet, neutral, Heather's shadow. But tonight she was here, outside the borders. She didn't say anything, just gave a half nod. The kind you give when you've been pretending not to see the same thing all week. And now you can't pretend anymore. And then she stepped into the light. She joined the circle. 1 song later, another cousin followed. By 1:15, 3 people from table 3 were dancing beside someone who cleaned the ship's bathrooms. And for the first time since boarding, I wasn't extra. I wasn't included. I was the host. The morning after the deck jam, I woke up to knocking. Not the polite kind. The knock of someone who already thinks you owe them your time. I opened the cabin door in a hoodie and socks. It was Heather. "Mum wants you at the captain's brunch," she said flatly. I wasn't invited. Her eyes narrowed. "Well, now you are." I crossed my arms. "I'm busy." Heather glanced past me. One glance at the room's size, the crew towel drying on a chair, the absence of decor. She stepped back like it smelled wrong. "What's going on with you?" I didn't answer. She tried again. "People are talking." I leaned against the doorframe. "About what?" "That party. Last night." A pause. "It wasn't a party," I said. "It was a release," she scoffed. "You embarrassed Mum." "No," I said. "She embarrassed herself." Heather's voice went quiet. "They said you planned it just to cause drama." I almost laughed. Is that what she's calling it now? Me dancing in a corner while they clink champagne upstairs. Drama? "You made it about you." I stepped forward. "They made it about everything but me." Heather opened her mouth, then stopped. I saw the flicker. That split second when someone sees the scene they've ignored for years, not as a glitch, but as design. "I have to go," she said. I nodded. "I'm not stopping you." She left. I shut the door and exhaled. That afternoon, Janelle met me by the crew elevator. She handed me a folded note with a smirk. "From your fan club." Inside was a handwritten message from one of the dish staff. "Thank you for last night. First time I danced in years." Then a second. "Heard you're doing something again tonight. Let us know." Something inside me unknotted. They weren't asking for permission. They were waiting for a place to breathe. So we did it again. This time it wasn't hidden. We moved it to the open-air bar on deck 4. Not technically off-limits, just usually unused after sunset. Janelle got a lighting rig from a theatre tech. A pastry intern brought leftover desserts from the late shift. Someone even played a saxophone, badly. And when I stepped onto that deck, people clapped. Not because I was Nicole Clark, daughter of whoever, but because I was the reason the room existed. Halfway through, a man in a pressed white shirt approached. Cruise officer, stern face, tablet in hand. "Excuse me," he said. "This gathering wasn't registered with family services." Janelle stepped up. "It's not a family event." He looked at me. "You're part of the Clark booking?" "I was," I said. He frowned. "This wasn't cleared through your coordinator." I looked out over the deck. 70 people dancing, laughing. No theme, no titles, just joy. "We didn't need clearance," I said. "We needed space." He didn't argue. He just wrote something on the tablet and walked away. Janelle grinned. "You gonna get banned from brunch now?" I smiled. Let them try. They didn't call me this time. They didn't knock. They used other people. By breakfast the next day, whispers had made it to every corner of the ship. That I'd taken over an emergency deck. That I was publicly disruptive. That my refusal to cooperate was upsetting the cruise staff. I heard it in line for coffee. 2 women in matching cruise shirts murmuring behind me. "I think it's the Clark daughter," one said. "Not the one with the husband. The single one." "Right," the other replied. "She started that whole thing last night." I didn't flinch, because I knew exactly where it came from. Control doesn't give up easily, and when it starts slipping, it doesn't apologize. It rewrites. I walked to the ship's wellness deck and sat by the fountain. Alone, but not hollow. I wasn't unraveling, I was waiting. A text came in from Beth. "They're saying you yelled at Grandma." I closed my eyes. We hadn't even seen Grandma since boarding. The lie was intentional, purposeful. Spread like sunscreen at a family reunion. Thick, messy, and impossible to wipe off once absorbed. But this time I didn't confront them in person. I let the storm swirl above deck while I walked with the staff below. We rethreaded the lights from deck 4 and moved them to the side of the atrium stairwell. Not officially off limits, just overlooked. I hosted a crew talent night at 11:30, 10 performers, no judges, just clapping, just voice. And during one spoken word poem by a janitor named Leo, I saw something incredible. Heather. Not walking away, not eye-rolling, just watching, like she was trying to hear something past the script. She didn't approach me, but she didn't leave either. After the applause, I slipped outside to the portside balcony. There was wind, there was dark sea, and then there was a shadow behind me. "Nicole." My dad. I turned slowly. He looked tired, not the good kind of tired, the kind that comes from fighting a losing battle no one told you not to start. "I want to talk," he said. I waited. He stepped forward. "This isn't how we wanted the trip to go." "That makes 2 of us," he sighed. "You've embarrassed your mother." I met his eyes. "No, I embarrassed the image she curated." He flinched. "She's crying, Nicole." "Good." He took another breath, longer now. "You think this helps? Making a scene?" "It's not a scene, I said. It's a correction." He didn't respond. I stepped past him. "I'm not on your schedule anymore, so don't expect me to run on your time." I left him there, alone, facing the ocean he thought would cover the cracks, but the tide never lies, and some things don't wash away. The ship's final night was always themed. Every year since I could remember, it was the same: the Clark Gala, a photo booth, a giant cake, a printed speech by my father titled The Voyage of Us. I was never quoted. This year they added a red carpet. Not for us. For the cameras. It didn't matter. I wasn't going. We had other plans. The final deck jam was already in motion. We'd strung lights from the balcony railing and borrowed unused centerpieces from a cancelled rehearsal dinner. Janelle brought paint markers. People wrote their names on mirrors, railings, and old napkins like it was the last day of summer camp. Then someone knocked over the speaker. Not accidentally, not gently. It hit the floor hard, power cable yanked. The music died, and standing beside it, coral dress, pearl necklace, perfect blowout, was Heather. No apology, no embarrassment, just a quiet, calculated tilt of her head. "I thought I'd stop by," she said. Janelle moved toward the speaker. "We're in the middle of—" Heather raised her voice. "This is unauthorized. You're not staff. She's not staff. This is a breach." People went still, the kind of still that precedes a storm. Someone tried to reconnect the cord. Another guest whispered, "Wasn't she the one who—" I stepped forward. "Heather, why are you here?" "To fix it." "Fix what?" "This mess," she snapped. "You've made a complete joke of the family name." "Which family?" I asked. That stopped her. "The one that forgets people exist unless they're posed perfectly?" Her jaw clenched. "You think this little protest makes you brave?" I walked past the crowd, slow and deliberate. "No," I said. "I think it makes me visible." She scoffed. "You're spiraling." "No, Heather," I said. "I'm spiraling out of your orbit." The speaker flickered back to life. A beat, a crackle, then full volume. The crowd exhaled. Janelle stepped in between us. "I think it's time you left," she told Heather. "I'm family. And I'm security for this deck tonight." Heather hesitated. Then she turned, her heels echoing like punctuation marks. "Gone. For now." I took the mic. "I wasn't going to make a speech," I said. "But since we're live—" A pause. People leaned in. Some of us didn't grow up with a stage, or a spotlight, or a seat. My voice stayed steady. But tonight, we built our own. Cheers, applause, feet stomping in rhythm, because this wasn't rebellion, this was reclamation. And for the first time, they couldn't turn the volume down. The ship leaned gently with the waves. After Heather left, the energy stayed charged, but softer. People danced again. The speaker held. The lights blinked like distant stars someone drew by hand. But I stepped away, not to retreat, just to breathe. I walked toward the portside observation deck where the lights didn't quite reach. I leaned on the rail. Below, the water was velvet black. And then I heard steps behind me. Slow, uneven. Beth, coral sweater. No makeup. No phone in sight. She stood next to me without a word. For a long minute, we just stared out. Finally, she spoke. "I saw it happening for years." My heart caught. I just didn't know how to stop it. I turned to her. She didn't look at me. "They always made it seem so normal, so casual, like it wasn't exclusion, just scheduling." I said nothing. "I remember Christmas 2 years ago. You were told the flight info changed. It didn't. They just didn't book you." My throat tightened. "I asked Mum about it," Beth continued. "She said, 'Nicole's too busy anyway.' Like that excused it." "Why didn't you say anything then?" She looked down. "Because I was scared." I raised an eyebrow. "Of them. Of becoming you." That hit like a fist. "I don't mean—" She rushed. "I just mean, they treat you like an echo, like someone who's only there when it's convenient, and I was terrified they'd turn that on me." The wind tugged at my jacket, I said. "So you let them?" She nodded. "I let them." Silence. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, a folded photo. Us, from years ago, summer barbecue. I was 15, she was 13. Both of us in flip-flops, dripping ice cream. She handed it to me. "I kept this," she said, "because it's the only time I remember you looking. There." I held it. Soft corners. Faded ink. "We used to laugh," I whispered, "before it all got arranged." She nodded. Then, "I don't know how to fix this." I looked at her. "You can't." Her shoulders sank. "But you can stop lying to yourself," I said. "You knew. You watched. You stayed quiet." Tears filled her eyes. "And now?" "Now," I said, "you don't get to be neutral anymore." She nodded. Not defensive, not offended, just breaking and rebuilding. Somewhere above us, the ship's announcement dinged for the midnight special, but we didn't move. We stayed in the dark. with the waves, with the truth. Disembarkation. Morning smells like coffee and salt. Everyone wears their best version of casual, ironed linen, pastel backpacks, family hats, group selfies at sunrise, luggage tags with glitter markers, that exhausting Clark family brand of forced enthusiasm. I wore black. Again. And I waited. The itinerary said, breakfast at 7:30, group disembarkation photo at 8:15, shuttle assignments at 8:45. I wasn't on the list. Again. No seat on the group shuttle. No colour-coded sticker on my bag. No slot in the port manifest. I double-checked, then triple-checked, then stared at my last name printed on someone else's slot. Heather Clark. Guest number 14. But guest number 15? Blank. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I walked to the breakfast terrace where they were already posing. Heather fixed her hair behind her ear. Mom arranged a bouquet, accidentally, in front of an empty seat. I stood just outside the frame. Dad glanced at me, winced, then turned away. Mom pretended I was scenery. Again. Then something happened. From the side path, Janelle approached, in her hand, a clipboard. Behind her, 4 staff members, a small cart, and a set of silver escort passes. She nodded at me. You ready? I stepped forward. Absolutely. She turned to the photographer. Sorry, we'll need to delay this picture. Nicole Clark has priority escort. Mum's smile froze. Heather squinted. What? Janelle gestured toward the cart. She's on the VIP transfer list. Group A. I could feel Dad's voice gathering, like a storm behind a thin door. But she's not. She is now, Janelle interrupted. Cleared by operations. I didn't look at them. I looked at Beth. She didn't move, but she didn't look away. As the group murmured, I stepped onto the cart, accepted the pass, and sat without flinching. Janelle climbed beside me. Room by the window? Perfect, I said. And we pulled away, not fast, not flashy, just first. Behind me, the group reset for the photo. The cart wound past the decks, past the signs, past the faces I used to chase for scraps of acknowledgement. I didn't need that now, because for once I wasn't the extra. I was the first name on the list, and it wasn't a mistake. The farewell ceremony was hosted in the ship's central ballroom. White marble floors, gold trim, a podium so shiny it reflected every micro-expression. The Clark family sat in row 1, second block from the left. I wasn't seated with them. I was backstage. Janelle had arranged it quietly, efficiently. I didn't ask how, only why. You created more connection on this ship than anyone in a lanyard, she said. You deserve a voice. There was a printed schedule, closing remarks, a montage, and then a section titled Guest Reflections, Clark Family. Only one name was listed. Nicole Clark. When the MC read it aloud, my mother blinked in visible confusion. Heather twisted in her seat. Dad whispered something sharp under his breath. I walked to the podium. No music, no applause, just the quiet shift of hundreds of chairs as guests leaned in. I wasn't sure I belonged here, I began. Not just in this room. On this cruise. Several people sat up straighter. See, sometimes being included doesn't mean being seen. It means being tolerated, photographed, cropped later. Someone near the aisle murmured, I came here expecting nothing. I got even less. Until I stopped asking for room and made one. Now more heads turned, not in confusion, in recognition. We hosted our own events, I continued, not because we were angry, because we were left out, because the soundtrack didn't fit, because the table was full and the invites were pre-labeled. I paused, scanned the crowd. Some of the kitchen staff stood at the back, some of the interns. One of the dancers from the crew talent night had tears in her eyes. I want to thank every person who came to our corner of the ship, not to escape but to exhale. Silence, then one clap, then another, and then a full round, not explosive, but honest, grounded. I finished. Maybe next year you'll remember to add the rest of us to the itinerary. I stepped down. Janelle was waiting. She handed me a folded envelope. Inside, a letter on official cruise stationery. Dear Ms. Clark, we thank you for contributing to a more inclusive experience this year. If you ever wish to consult with our guest engagement team, we would be honoured. It was signed by the Director of Guest Experience and carbon copied to the entire planning committee. I didn't frame it, but I didn't throw it away either. I walked past row 1 on my way out. No one spoke. No one reached. Beth looked at me, and for once didn't look away. The shuttle docked at the mainland terminal by 10:40 a.m. Guests were streaming toward customs and luggage check. The Clarks travelled as a pack. Bright polos, monogrammed weekender bags, forced laughter louder than necessary. I waited near the portside cafe. I didn't need their timeline, and I knew he would come. Dad. He always saved his performances for last. He approached with that steady, rehearsed calm, the tone he used for interviews and insurance pitches. That was quite the stunt, he said. I didn't move. You blindsided us, he added. Made the family look divided. I looked out at the water. We are divided. He ignored that. You embarrassed your mother. She embarrassed herself. His jaw clenched. I brought you on this trip, paid for your cabin. No, I said. You made a show of bringing me, then spent 6 days trying to erase me from every group photo. He lowered his voice. You think this little rebellion makes you a hero? No, I said. It makes me real. He laughed. A short, humorless thing. You were never supposed to outshine us. That stopped me. I turned fully. What? You were background, he said, like it was obvious. Support, not centerpiece. I stared at him, and everything clicked. Not just the cruise, every wedding, every holiday, every speech where my name was accidentally skipped. Every seating plan where my chair was extra. Every year-end letter with Heather's accomplishments and Beth's baby photos. And a footnote for me. You planned it that way, I whispered. He didn't deny it. You didn't belong on that stage, meh, he said. You stole that moment. I stepped forward. No, I claimed it. After you spent years training me to shrink. A pause. Then, I'm not afraid of you anymore. He flinched, just slightly. But I saw it. It was the first time he realized he couldn't manage the narrative. I'm not mad, I continued. I'm not even hurt. I'm done. He blinked. I don't need revenge. I took a breath. Because you have to go home with the version of yourself who said that out loud. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. Not for guilt. Not for closure. Just forward. To the rideshare queue. To the train. To a life where I wasn't a footnote. Where I didn't have to win. Because I wasn't playing their game anymore. I watched the ship pull away from port. Not from the dock. From a hilltop bench 2 hours inland. The air smelled like rain and hibiscus. My duffel bag sat at my feet, half-zipped, still dusted with sand from the shuttle stairs. I hadn't spoken to anyone since leaving. No calls. No texts. I didn't need to. Because for once I wasn't explaining anything. I wasn't asking anyone to believe me, or include me, or finally see me. I already had. And that was enough. I opened my notebook. The same one I carried the whole cruise. Most pages were blank. One held a packing list. Another a napkin taped in from deck 4, signed by every person who came to our first music night. I flipped to the last page and wrote, they built a cruise, I built a stage, they named cabins. I made space, they took the mic, I kept the voice. A pause. Then I added, I didn't leave quietly, I left whole. There was no audience, no spotlight, no click of a camera to catch the moment. Just wind, just light, just me. And the version of myself that never needed a group photo to feel real.